The mysterious Marfa Lights of West Texas. Out in far West Texas, where the high desert meets the sky and the horizon stretches for miles, strange orbs of light have captivated locals and visitors for over a century. About 9 miles east of the tiny town of Marfa, unexplained glowing spheres appear along Mitchell Flat and have come to be known as the enigmatic Marfa Lights. Ranging in color from white to yellow, red, blue, and green, these ethereal light balls seem to defy explanation, dancing above the desert scrub, splitting into two and merging back together again, changing color and size. Some remain stationary, while others glide or zip erratically across the prairie. The lingering legends, oral histories, and several scientific studies surrounding the Marfa Lights have established their bona fides as a legitimate unexplained phenomenon, but have failed to conclusively account for their origin. Speculative theories abound, ascribing the mystery lights to ghosts, aliens, geomagnetic or piezoelectric forces, subterranean gases, mirages, or any number of other fantastic explanations. The Apache and other Native American tribes have their own ancient stories dating back centuries, attempting to illuminate the strange lights. Tales of lost conquerors, hoards of Spanish gold, conflagrations on nearby ridges that early pioneers mistook as signal fires, wandering souls of fallen Comanche warriors and railroad workers killed in accidents setting their lanterns on ridges permeate the folklore. The myriad tales woven into the fabric of local lore stitch together a patchwork quilt of beguiling mystery, speculation, and intrigue that fascinates paranormal enthusiasts, inspires artists and writers, and draws the curious to observe and decide for themselves. Contributing to the lights' inscrutable nature is their sporadic appearance, showing up in unexplained cycles of activity followed by equally inexplicable dormant periods. A serendipitous glimpse remains the traveler's quest. While some skeptics dismiss the Marfa Lights as mistaken sightings of distant traffic headlights or reflections of astronomical bodies, those who witness the glowing orbs close up insist they are viewing something entirely unaccounted for and perhaps otherworldly. Nearly 5 miles out of Marfa, a historic and unassuming roadside viewing platform on Highway 90 has marked the prime location for hopeful skywatchers to catch sight of the recondite radiance since the 1930s. As the dancing illuminations continue to materialize over the silent steppe grasslands east of town, their elusive source continues to captivate astronomers, parapsychologists, and paranormal chasers daring to unlock the enigma. The Marfa Lights remain an evasive phenomenon, their reality uncontested, but their provenance still steeped in mystery. Early Native American accounts. The Jumano hunter-gatherers are believed to be among the first Native American tribes to roam through West Texas, passing through the Trans-Pecos region for thousands of years on seasonal migrations. Various Apache bands, including the Mescaleros, began moving down through the area in the 14th century from present-day New Mexico, displacing earlier Plains Indian groups like the Jumanos, except for those taken captive. The Apache and other tribes traversed across the grasslands and camped among the rocky outcroppings in the Chinati Mountains, where the odd nocturnal illuminations would have been visible. While not much has been passed down regarding native perspectives of the strange hovering lights, some anthropologists speculate that Apache oral tradition warning of ghosts haunting the mountains refers to early indigenous sightings. If regional tribes like the Mescalero Apache had traditional stories about the lights, they have been lost over generations of upheaval and relocation by European settlers. The information void has opened up imaginative possibilities for those who believe Native Americans had their own mythic interpretation. Perhaps they viewed the glowing orbs as manifestations of ancestral spirits, trapped between worlds, or celestial guides lighting the way for travelers across the vast grasslands below. Maybe shamans conjured up the illuminations through sacred rituals and their communities kept the phenomenon secret from outsiders. Fanciful speculation aside, the fact remains that no definitive written record exists of how regional tribes viewed the strange nocturnal lights or integrated them into belief systems. With their nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle and strong oral tradition, Native Americans undoubtedly observed the Marfa phenomenon during their seasonal migrations and encampments. Any ancestral explanations tied to the lights have faded like the illuminations themselves over centuries of tumultuous change in West Texas. The cryptic orbs hovering above the rugged Chinati Mountains, like the lost native stories, continue cloaked in mystery. Early Anglo settlers and then railroad expansion. In the mid-19th century, as American settlers pushed westward across Texas to fulfill manifest destiny, conflict arose with Native American groups like the Apache, who had dominated the Trans-Pecos area for centuries through seasonal migration. The first Anglo pioneers began settling the Big Bend region in the 1850s, along the San Antonio-El Paso Road, which became a notoriously dangerous passage due to raids by Mescalero, Apache, and Comanche bands. In 1857, the Butterfield Overland Mail also established a stagecoach route through West Texas, which helped bolster security for American pioneers in the isolated frontier. The extension of rail lines sparked Anglo expansion and settlement through West Texas in the early 1880s, introducing cattle ranching, mining, and desert agriculture. As the Galveston, Harrisburg, and San Antonio Railroad began laying tracks westward across Texas in 1882, Marfa was founded as a railroad water stop and construction headquarters. Named after a character in Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov, the fledgling railroad camp blossomed into a village by 1883. Soon a bustling railway depot and elegant hotels sprouted up around the train tracks. With lawless boomtowns developing in isolated areas and ongoing conflicts with Native American resistance to expanding Anglo settlement across Comanche and Apache territory, Texas Rangers and US cavalry troops were called upon to enforce order. Several military camps were established in the Big Bend, including Camp Marfa, Camp Polvo, and Camp Paisano, north of Fort Davis. Troop encampments meant soldiers spending long nights on patrol would have glimpsed the odd nocturnal illuminations over the open range. Perhaps restless cavalrymen on remote mounted duty even ventured out to investigate the strange hovering lights, mistaking them for Apache encampment fires set along ridgetops or a prospector's lantern signals. Such speculative origin tales most likely grew from soldiers and scouts comparing their experiences around campfires. If strange hovering lights could spook a hardened frontiersman staring up at the vast starlit desert sky, surely tales spread quickly in the isolated railroad camps and makeshift settlements of early West Texas. With completion of regional Texas and Pacific rail lines by 1882, Marfa became the shipping point for cattle and agricultural products as ranching took hold. Conflicts flared up between cowboys and small farmers vying for limited tillable acreage needed for subsistence crops to sustain families through harsh winters. New Anglo settlers streamed into the region, displacing native groups, leading to violent resistance and brutal military campaigns, forcing tribes like Mescalero Apache onto reservations. By 1883, as tribal lands shrunk and bison herds were wiped out, Apache raiding increased dramatically. From 1881 with settlers blaming the Indians for stealing cattle and horses, as well as attacking trains and frontier outposts. During construction of the San Antonio-El Paso line in 1881, which passed through Marfa, labor disputes erupted into violence, leaving dead railroad workers in its wake. In January 1882, a section house in Marfa was robbed, with a railroad foreman beaten nearly to death, though he survived. Another murder took place 80 miles west in Hot Springs, leading to Texas Rangers pursuing 3 suspects. That August, B. Pfeffer Williams, a railroad employee in Marfa, shot and killed section boss James Fusselman from Fort Worth. Conflicts between Anglo settlers and regional Apache bands also led to violent skirmishes, kidnappings, and property raids around Marfa during this period. Such frontier mayhem doubtlessly spawned cautionary tales off phantom lights sighted over Mitchell Flat, where fallen cowboys, murdered railroad workers, and fallen Apache warriors eternally roamed the desolate ridges. Marfa's railroad history coupled with regional violence stirs the imagination. Restless spirits hovering in the desert darkness beckon speculation that the first pioneer settlers interpreted the enigmatic illuminations as apparitions of those who violently met their end in the untamed frontier, perhaps when lone horsemen rode the range at night, the unexplained lights inspired ghostly tales around campfires to break up the monotonous night watch. Through such lore borrowed from Gothic frontier myth and dime novel fiction, the odd nocturnal phenomenon observed by early West Texas settlers became intertwined with fanciful phantasmic explanations in regional pioneer folk history. ranching heyday and the turn of the century. As open-range ranching took hold across West Texas in the 1880s, cattle drives from Presidio and Marfa became regular affairs. The prominent regional spread ranch, founded in 1881, quickly expanded from Marfa under the ownership of ranching pioneer Milton Favor. Large landholders and ranching outfits also developed properties on both sides of Mitchell Flat along the Texas-Mexico border, where the Marfa Lights routinely appeared. Cowboys and ranch hands, spending long nights mounts guarding immense herds, would have been quite familiar with the odd hovering illuminations over the open prairie landscapes. Many of Marfa's first hotels were built along the rail line, catering to cattlemen, cowboys, and pioneers passing through what was quickly becoming ranching country. As regional ranches grew, so did the town. By the early 1890s, Marfa was an established West Texas community with schools, churches, a thriving downtown, and a population near 3,000 residents supported by area ranches. The Marfa Land Office, which opened in 1887, oversaw property sales and development for Presidio County, while US Cavalry Post, called Camp Marfa, set up southeast of town from 1891 to 1895 to patrol the remote borderlands, with Marfa evolving into a ranching hub amid a brutal frontier. The odd nocturnal illuminations frequent libzard became a common sight for cowboys riding night watch under big desert skies. Isolated range riders undoubtedly had their share of speculation and misgivings, perhaps even spinning yarns to pass night watch hours about the eerie hovering lights being trapped souls. Apache spirits or railroad lanterns, swinging eternally along Mitchell Flat, awaiting lost travelers. Such fireside lore, shared to pass long lonesome nights watching enormous herds, likely inspired the earliest tales, attempting to explain the odd nocturnal phenomenon as something supernatural. As Anglo-ranching expansion across the remote Trans-Pecos region disrupted Apache freedom of movement, increased conflict led to violent attacks in southern Presidio County. In January 1885, Apache raiders invaded the spread ranch near Marfa, killing a Mexican cowboy and driving off 150 cattle plus horses in retaliation for tribal members killed by the military. Another 25 horses were stolen from a rancher named Jim Black west of Marfa in separate raid weeks later. Cavalry troops tracked the culprits back into Mexico, but failed to retrieve the stolen livestock. Such violent skirmishes, coupled with fighter patrols risking night ambushes, doubtlessly put cowboys and soldiers on edge. Riding lonely night sentry duty, staring out across the open starlit scrub, where the eerie illuminations appeared, likely stirred plenty of fireside folklore tales. Through the 1890s, as the last of the Apache bands were forced onto reservations, ending 4 decades of warfare across West Texas, ranching operations continued, expanding. While conflict with Native Americans subsided, violent range wars erupted between cattle ranchers and farmers vying for property and water resources. Banditry, claim jumping, vigilante justice, and hired gunslingers wreaked further havoc as cattlemen and cowboys battled homesteaders. Night riders often held the advantage under the cover of darkness, as the nocturnal light shows hovered above. Speculation spread that the lights observed by opposing groups were actually each other's guiding beacons for night maneuvers. With the frontier slowly giving way from open range to fenced ranch land and subsistence farms by 1900, communities like Marfa evolved into more civilized populaces, though an air of lawlessness still permeated the Big Bend backcountry. Violence eventually declined as ranching families put down deeper local roots and frontier militias disbanded. Independent homesteads slowly transformed unfenced grasslands into a patchwork of smaller farmsteads as desert Southwest agriculture expanded. The strange hovering illuminations frequently observed at night by early pioneers became an accepted part of the regional lore in rural towns like Marfa. By the early 20th century, most longtime ranchers and their cowhands simply viewed the odd flying light balls as a normal part of the night sky landscape, while speculation undoubtedly continued around campfires and saloon tables regarding the true source. Early frontier folktales faded into flickering embers as fledgling communities modernized. The unexplained lights, however, still shined as brilliantly as ever over the West Texas darkness, awaiting scientific scrutiny from an intellectual elite enthralled by uncharted natural mysteries. Scientific scrutiny in the early 20th century. As the 20th century dawned and Marfa slowly grew into a ranching community with schools, civic offices, general stores, saloons, and a hotel, curiosities like the odd nocturnal illuminations lingering over the desert countryside inevitably attracted academic interest. In 1913, the Alpine Chamber of Commerce organized an observational expedition to triangulate coordinates and gather data on the mysterious hovering lights. W. Elliott, chemistry professor from Sul Ross Normal College, now Sul Ross State University, in Alpine, led a team to the Marfa region for first-hand scrutiny. The researchers mapped precise locations along Mitchell Flat, where lights appeared, and took detailed notes on colors, movements, and duration. Some lights remained visible for hours, while others soon faded, moving together as a group or solo in unpredictable patterns. Colors ranged from white to a variety of spectral hues. In his report, Elliott concluded the Marfa lights could not be reflected automobile headlights, given the sporadic vehicle traffic through ranchlands, nor train lights, since the nearest tracks lay 20 miles west. While unable to fully explain the phenomenon based on evidence gathered, the professor did disprove several prevailing folk explanations. Local speculation that the hovering illuminations resulted from drifting cinders from extinct volcanoes or igniting gases emanating from geological faults lacked supporting data. Similarly, no trace mineral residue or ash piles were found, ruling out combustion origin theories. Neither wavering campfire embers nor lightning bugs matched observational records. That the luminous flying balls of light could hover motionless for prolonged periods without fading. Seeking additional scientific verification, in September 1941, amid renewed local interest, Cerro Alto Ranch foreman Robert Ellison led a well-armed nocturnal sortie from the property's headquarters 15 miles southeast of Marfa into the heart of the lights activity area. The vigilante posse was investigating recent unsolved livestock mutilations and suspected a covert group of rustlers, using the weird illuminations as signal beacons for night raids. Determined cowboys armed with binoculars, cameras, and weapons surrounded a stationary light ball that split into two before merging back together and abruptly disappearing. Despite lying in wait for hours within shooting range, no explanation was found and no hidden rustlers materialized. Photos taken using heat-sensitive infrared film showed no trace of humans or horses along the empty flat. The Cerro Alto Lights incident lent further credibility to the unexplained phenomenon, defying prosaic explanation. Renewed scientific inquiry commenced in May 1948, when atmospheric physicist Dr. C.L. Johnson from the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio established a mobile monitoring lab with cameras, spectrographs, and radiation detection gear at the Highway 90 viewing platform west of Marfa. Johnson and his team observed lights appearing within a 6-mile radius to the northeast with colors spanning the visible spectrum plus infrared, ultraviolet, and undetermined wavelengths seemingly unhindered by electromagnetic interference. Triangulation calculations placed several light clusters hugging the landscape below 800 feet altitude, moving against prevailing winds. After eliminating obvious explanations, Johnson postulated the Marfa phenomena as electromagnetic correlate energy fields, nature yet unknown to science, interacting with iron ore deposits or perhaps even nerve cell emissions from regional flora. Inconclusive evidence, however, failed to fully validate the theory, so speculation continued regarding the quixotic lights' elusive source.